Hello everybody and welcome to this. It's the continuation in the series on A-level English language applicable to all exam boards. Everything I go through comes from Mr. Bruff's Guide to A-level English language, written by Lindsay Dyer, available for £4.99 at mrbruff.com and amazon.co.uk. So we're up to assessment objective 4. Hopefully you've been watching the playlists which take you through everything, but we are looking at today assessment objective 4, explore connections across texts informed by linguistic concepts and methods. Let's have a think first about this word connections. Okay, so simply discussing the data or restricting your comparison to focusing just on audience, purpose, genre, topic and writer is actually too limited for A-level study. You need to make links between the language and the context and reduce your analysis to only the most important comparisons. And these are the most impressive points and probably won't be the most obvious or easy to find. I think at GCSE there's a tendency to sort of write about everything that you notice, but at A-level you've got to think about everything that comes to mind and then choose to write about the most impressive perceptive points. For example, you might compare or contrast the use of noun phrases used to persuade or dexis used to reference and guide a reader. Now, it's impossible to discuss all of the connections you might find in the time you have, so aim for 3 or 4 paragraphs of comparison and make sure that you give examples from all of the texts. Don't be concerned about repeating points you've made earlier in the exam. A04 is a completely different assessment objective and the content can overlap as it's about making links. So the other thing to think about is this idea of linguistic concepts and methods, and this is the ability to analyse, explore and comment on assessment objective 1, 2 and 3, which we've covered in this video series already. So the question everybody always wants to know, how do I get the grade? Well, you can ask yourself the following questions. Have you compared and contrasted the audience, purpose and genre of the texts? Have you compared and contrasted the language features? Have you reduced your findings to the most important or impressive points? Now, let's give you an example of what that might look like in your exam response. How do I structure the response is what we're going to think about. You've got to ensure that each text is addressed equally in the analysis, and the best way to do this is by moving equally between the texts, writing about them together, not separately. So your paragraph might be structured something like this. Text A and B both focus on the topic of. However, the fact that they have different purposes and are aimed at different audiences reveals some interesting differences. Both texts contain the use of, then we'll have a linguistic term, for example, and then text A uses this too, whereas text B uses this too. And you'll see this is a big jump up from GCSE where, maybe you were comparing poems, but you were writing about them in separate paragraphs. And this is still an extension of the P paragraph, as we've talked about before, but it's just making it, much more sophisticated. You've got to be methodical and systematic in your approach. You've got to make sure you identify the significant linguistic points, provide evidence from both texts, use connectives to signal comparison or contrast, and link to context. There's quite a lot to do. Now in the ebook exclusively, I'm not going to be adding these to the videos, there are lots of examples of brilliant student work on A-level English language. So if you're sat there thinking, man, this sounds so tricky, do get the ebook and have a look at the examples. They really will help. Thanks for watching. Please do subscribe to the channel.